You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. Bark and Wag is dedicated to protecting our dogs through advocacy, education, and supporting like-minded dog lovers by selling custom pet products. Bark and Wag is excited to announce our new partnership with a Colorado hemp farm to produce a line of CBD products for your pets. Bark and Wag has CBD pet tincture available in 300, 750, 1200, and 2400 milligrams. Bark and Wag CBD is pet safe, no THC, it's made in the USA, and is CO2 extracted. Please check out Bark and Wag's website, barkandwag.com. That is BARK, to see our line of CBD and awesome merchandise. We love pooch ideas for podcasts and merchandise, so anytime send an email to Polly at barkandwag.com with your suggestions.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to Christy, owner of Cosmos Dog Bakery, as well as Frenchie, the store manager. Welcome.
Hi. Hello. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for coming back on the podcast. I wanted to have you back because not only do you sell cookies, biscuits, cakes, but you also sell dog food. There are so many dog foods, it's so overwhelming. How do you help customers find the right dog food?
The first thing that I like to ask people is, if they're newcomers, what made them come here? A lot of times it can be a vet visit. A lot of times it can just be that they're new pet owners and they want to do the best that they can for their pet. A lot of times it can be that they got something on social media or that they saw something on the internet and are very curious about the information, if it's misinformation, if it's correct information. So there's many, many different reasons that people might come in. So I try and get a little bit of information and try and get a little bit of background information about their pet. You get age, GI system. Are they having good bowel movements? Are they vomiting? The general appearance, is their coat shiny? Is there dandruff? Is their skin dry? Is their nose dry? Are their eyes bright? So there's lots of different things that I try and get before going forward with trying to figure out what might be right for them. So the other thing that I wanted to touch on nutritionally is the whole grain in or grain free discussion that's going around. A lot of people come in and ask that question because it is extremely overwhelming, and a lot of pet parents are very concerned. So I will put some nutritional background and say that grain-free food came out probably about 15 years ago. And that was when a lot of owners of purebred dogs, especially Goldens, Boxers, Aussies, Great Danes, that kind of thing, they were seeing hot spots, dry coats, breaking coats, really dry noses, dull and runny eyes, those kind of things, and very red tummy areas and bad bowel movements, those kind of things. And what the nutritional people came up with is eventually eliminating grain from the diet, and that solved pretty much 95% of those problems. You're always going to have seasonal allergies, especially this time of year in Colorado. It's very dry. There's tons of pollen out. When your nose starts to run, I guarantee you their eyes are starting to run. So they have allergies just like we do. You may always see hot spots now and then. But so 15 years ago, the grain-free was the way to go for dogs that had allergies. So that being said, roll forward a little bit. And a lot of people were like, this high protein diet is wonderful and my dog's coat looks great. So everybody wanted to feed a very high protein, high quality diet. And so grain-free kind of took off. It's not that it was necessarily correct. It was correct for some dogs. It doesn't mean it was correct for all dogs. But it was a thing, and it was what everybody felt right to do at the time. So then rewind about 4 years ago, and there was this study from the FDA that came out saying that taurine deficiency was causing dilated cardiomyopathy. And what that is an enlarged heart, basically. So speaking scientifically, treating DCM or dilated cardiomyopathy comes from actually increasing the taurine of an animal's food. And taurine comes from lean muscle meat. It does not come from grain. So treating that would be by giving a higher protein diet. So I hope that can kind of clear up some confusion as far as what to do with grain in or grain free. So a lot of people will come in and just ask, and I tell people, as long as your dog is not intolerant to grains, do one bag grain in and do one bag grain free, back and forth, or do a kibble that's grain in and do a raw food on top of it. There's so many options out there, but not to worry that what you're doing is incorrect for your animal. You're doing all the great things.
And
it's a hard conversation for people.
Yeah. So when you have a customer come in, how do you help them research as you're walking up and down the aisles on what food to buy? And, it's just, there's so many now. Like before it used to be like, 10, and now there's it feels like there's like 45.
For sure. I try and in a very kind way, get an idea of what kind of budget they're looking at. Because we like to think of ourselves as catering not only to the uber riche, we like to cater to the people that want to come in with what little money they have and buy a dog food that is very healthy for their dog. So if I can get an idea of budget, digestive history, and allergies on the dog, I will get them to the food that best suits what they need.
And so when people are switching dog foods, do you still recommend buying a small bag and mixing it?
I absolutely do. I leave it up to them, but I do warn them because I never want a customer to leave and have a bad experience and then not talk to me about it. So I warn them that there may be gas, there may be a little bit of digestive upset. It will pass, but to be patient or to just buy that small bag and transition slowly.
And so when you're researching dog food for Cosmos Dog Bakery, do pet manufacturers send you samples and then you have dogs that are samples to see, or how do you pick the manufacturers that are in your store?
Basically what we look for is smaller manufacturers that are very transparent about their ingredients and don't use things like corn gluten meal, or any meat meal or byproduct. The other confusing thing that can be difficult for people is seeing chicken meal, pork meal, beef meal. You actually want to see your named protein with a meal because that's what increases the protein in your food. What you don't want to see is meat meal, an unnamed protein, or a byproduct meal. That's going to be stuff that you really don't want to see in your food.
Okay. And how do you feel about the raw diet?
We actually love the raw diet. Animals, especially dogs and cats, they were actually made specifically to digest raw food. It's a lot easier for them to digest. They have short digestive tracts, high acidity in their stomachs. They're meant to digest raw food. It's a lot easier on their system. That being said, not every dog likes raw food or tolerates raw food. It can be too rich. So they have new slowly cooked or sous vide diets that have been going over very well. Similar to Farmer's Dog, but it's something that's local, it's a small business, and it's something that we can offer to our people, our local people that don't want to wait for shipping or pay the higher prices. So we also have freeze-dried raw diets that can be rehydrated. And we also sell frozen toppers that are great just to put on top of the kibble.
And when you do a raw diet, do you measure it the same, or is it, so if you're doing a cup of kibble, is it a cup of raw, or is it different?
It's a little bit different, but it is measured by weight of your dog. So they come in 4-ounce sliders and 8-ounce patties. And depending on the weight of your dog, you may give as little as one 4-ounce slider, or up to 2 8-ounce patties twice a day.
And one other question, is raw more expensive than kibble, or are they about the same?
It honestly depends on the kibble that you're feeding. There are kibbles that we have, like Farmina and Open Farm, that are more farm to table and very transparent in their ingredients. They have QR codes that you can scan to find where everything came from. That's going to be about the price of feeding raw in just a kibble. But you could do something like Country Creations. We offer Diamond Naturals. You can always do something like that and then put raw on top of it to increase the protein, or just add a little bit of high quality meat to your dog's diet.
Great. Well, thank you very much for all the information, and I'd love to have you back if we get some listener questions.
Yeah, we love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, just tell everyone where they can get a hold of Cosmos Dog Bakery.
You can actually call us at 303-232-1477. We have a very knowledgeable and talented staff that are more than happy to answer any kind of nutrition questions. Or you can email us nutrition questions at info@cosmosdogbakery.com, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you so much. We look forward to it.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.